أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
I seek refuge in God from Satan the accursed, in the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I offer my condolences to the God's final proof, the promised Savior, Imam al-Mahdi. May God hasten his reappearance, and peace be upon him. And also to all the dear believers, to the oppressed nations, on the occasion of the Martyrdom anniversary of the best of the creation, the chosen one among the prophets, Muhammad bin Mustafa. May God's peace and blessings be upon him and his family. And also Imam Reza, peace be upon him, in these final days of the month of Safar. It is accurate to say that the martyrdom of Imam Hassan Mujtaba, peace be upon him, is on the 7th of Safar. Wishing for God's special favors, I hope that the occultation of Imam al-Mahdi comes to an end. According to traditions, at one night it will be decided for the Imam to reappear. We hope for this to happen soon, so that the world that is filled with injustice and oppression, and today we can see oppression is widespread all across the world. Regimes oppress nations. We can see oppression in lower levels among families and relatives. We all hope for all of this to come to an end by the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi. After the martyrdom of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Lady Fatima Zahra, peace be upon her, visited the Prophet's mosque. And at that time, there were no non-Muslims among the people in the mosque. There were hypocrites and believers in the mosque. Lady Fatima delivered that pivotal sermon, which drew a line between truth and falsehood. Anyone who still has doubts is either unlearned or prejudiced. In that sermon, she said, "O people." So she was addressing all people, not just the Muslims. Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, did what she was supposed to. She delivered that lecture. But who is responsible to make sure this message is made universal? The enemies of Lady Fatima will universalize this sermon, or the advocates of Lady Fatima? In no epoch in history, we never had the means necessary to globalize this message like we do today. Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, along with his family and followers, were tragically martyred in the hot plains of Karbala. The household of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, were taken prisoners in such a heart-rending manner. All of this for what? So that the message of Ashura reaches out to other people. The monk in Kufa, or the guests at the Yazid court. It's all about the transmission of the message. And today, what do we need to make it happen? It only requires one thing, and that is dedication. Each and every believer here should decide to publish the sermon by Lady Fatima in different languages, not in one day or in 1 month or 1 year. You can use the modern technologies that are available to almost all people. In this sermon, Lady Fatima said, "O people, know that I am Fatima and that my father is Muhammad. Everybody in the crowd already knew she was Lady Fatima, daughter of the God's final messenger. Lady Fatima visited the mosque after making an announcement. The dear scholars know one thing for a fact, that the advocates of falsehood do either of the two. They either lie or use faulty reasoning. All people in the mosque knew who Lady Fatima was. Before Lady Fatima began to deliver her sermon, she let out a deep sigh. Hearing the sigh, the entire crowd could not stop crying. It was as if something really horrible had happened to these people. So they already knew it was Lady Fatima who was speaking. So why did Lady Fatima introduce herself, saying that she is the daughter of the messenger? It was done so that no one claims that sermon wasn't delivered by Lady Fatima. We all should know this too, that when preaching the school of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, when preaching the traditions of the Holy Prophet of Islam, or the traditions of Lady Fatima and Imam Ali, peace be upon them, and also that of the other holy infallible personalities, we should always keep in mind that the enemies easily lie on multiple occasions. If any young believer who is hearing me now or in the future, if someone tries to collect all the lies that the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, either the hypocrites among the Prophet's companions or those after the passing of the Prophet, and even up until now, These lies are recorded in thousands of books. And it is proved that they are lies. If someone collects all these lies, they will make hundreds of volumes of books. That's why Lady Fatima introduced herself like that. First of all, it is my religious duty to mention this. This year's Arba'in is over. But how did it finish? How was it honored in Karbala, or in Iraq, or in other Islamic countries, and even in non-Islamic countries? The Holy Quran gives the answer in 2 words. We can apply it to the Arba'in of this year. A fraction in the heavens and a fraction in the hellfire. In this year's Arba'in, like the previous years, ever since the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, that is 1400 years ago, the pilgrimage to Imam Hussein decided which fraction ends up in the heaven or hellfire. Some traditions say their stomachs are filled with fire. Some people, by their hostility towards Imam Hussein, secure themselves a place in fire. Now I would like to tell you a story. Those of you who are younger than me, you might not have seen this. But those of you who are my age, if you lived in Iraq, or if you are one of those Iranians who visited Iraq in that special period, you might remember this story too. I can remember it very well. Before Iraq turned into a republic, more than 60 years ago, something named Baghdad Pact was signed. It was supervised by the Westerners, and it was a pact between Iran and Iraq. You can follow these stories in the newspapers of the day. Later on, Iran and Iraq happened to have some problems. And as a result of these problems, the Iraqi government refused to issue visas to Iranians for visiting Imam Hussein's shrine. Only a handful of Iranians could acquire the visa. The Iranian government of that time stopped issuing passports for people who wanted to visit Iraq. Thousands, tens of thousands. I'm not sure about the exact number. It was said that 100,000 Iranians visited Iraq for pilgrimage. Out of the 100,000 people, only 1,000 of them had visas. So most of these Iranians visited Iraq, passing through the unofficial borders. At then, border tensions were not as much as today.
اون وقت هم این سختگیری هایی که الان تو دنیا هست نبود انقدر. علا کل میمدن.
The people who visited Iraq without official papers, they were taken to court. They were sentenced to either of the two. They either had to pay a fine, something around 5 dinars, which was the money for a meal at a restaurant.
ارزشش 15 تا سیخ کباب میدادن. سیخ کباب 10 فلس بود. 5 دینار هم 5 تا 5 دینار 5000 فلس بود.
Or they were put in prison for a period of 3 to 15 days, after which they were deported.
از 3 روز تا 15 روز اقلش. بعدم
In those days, I visited the office of the Karbala governor. I also visited the jailhouse at the governor's office. There were 2 small rooms. And then I remember there was only one person at the jailhouse.
یه اتاق که خالی بود، درش باز بود، درش همین میلی بود. یه اتاق هم یه نفر توش حبس بود.
The governor of Karbala at that time was not a Shia Muslim, but he was an advocate of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him.
اما علاقه به امام حسین داشت. صلوات الله.
More than 100,000 Iranians without official documents had visited Iraq. And in most cases, the Iraqi police never minded them out of the respect to Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. But there were some mean officers who arrested these pilgrims and took them to the jailhouse. It was said that the governor, who was not a Shia Muslim, but he loved Imam Hussein very much, he used to shout at those mean officers for arresting the pilgrims. Nonetheless, he had to execute the law because he was a governor. So he did not prison anyone. The one person I saw at the jailhouse was not a pilgrim. He only fined the pilgrims and paid the fine by himself. And then he freed the pilgrims with respect. But in Samarra and Baghdad, the pilgrims were not treated as nicely. Anyways, a small number of the pilgrims were prisoned or fined during their trip. Imam Hussein has so many servants. In those days, the majority of the Iraqi officers were the advocates of Imam Hussein. And therefore they did not mind the Iranian pilgrims. Only a few officers arrested the pilgrims, not in Karbala, but in other places. Other pilgrims visited these scholars to ask for a solution. Some pilgrims were present and some others were fined. The late Muhammad Hussein Kashif al-Ghita, may he rest in peace, he was a great Shia scholar in the holy city of Najaf, and there were tens of other Shia scholars in Najaf at that time. I had met them in person. I was a student to some of them. The late Kashif al-Ghita was one of those scholars. He used to give out small paper slips on which he had written, "To whom it may concern." And then it was the name of a pilgrim holding the paper slip. The paper said that this person is here for pilgrimage, so please help him. This was not addressed to the government, to whom it may concern. On those paper slips, there was also the phone number of the Kashif al-Ghita. More than 1,000 of these paper slips were given away to pilgrims. His phone number was also there on the paper. The pilgrims were instructed to use these paper slips instead of visas and passports. And if anyone tried to stop them or treated them poorly, they were told to call them and introduce that abusive officer to them. It was said that 4 or 5 cases were reported to Kashif al-Ghita. 4 or 5 officers had insulted pilgrims despite them having the paper slips. Pilgrims had entered Iraq to visit these 4 cities: Najaf, Karbala, Samarra, and Kazimain. 4 or 5 abusive officers were introduced to the late Kashif al-Ghita. The Prime Minister of Iraq at that time was a person called Nuri Said. He was the most important political figure in the entire Middle East. Iraq and Iran at that time had some disputes, and so they restricted passage between the 2 countries. The late Kashif al-Ghita used to lead congregational prayers at the shrine of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, in holy Najaf. And when he visited the holy city of Karbala, he led congregational prayers there too. 4 or 5 officers had disrespected the pilgrims, despite them having the paper slips. So Kashif al-Ghita called Nuri Said, the Prime Minister, and without the normal greetings, Kashif al-Ghita said, "How come the papers you issue are valid and the papers I issue are not valid?" Nuri Said then asked what had happened, and Kashif al-Ghita replied, "The governments of Iran and Iraq have some disputes. Just like 2 kids. But the nation of Iraq doesn't care or approve of these disputes. And so the nation of Iran, likewise, doesn't care or approve of these behaviors. We did not issue visas to Iranians to come here for pilgrimage. and Iran did not issue passports. But Iranian people love Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. They have come to Iraq without a visa or a passport. Kashif al-Ghata then said that I have given these people visas. Why some of the government officials have refused to accept these visas? Nuri Said then asked for the names of those abusive officers and they were introduced to him. Then Nuri Said apologized to Kashif al-Ghata and promised it won't repeat. And Kashif al-Ghata ended saying, "We'll see." It is said that Nuri Said called the interior minister of Iraq, a person whose name was Khalil Khanna, after the revolution and when Iraq turned into a republic. Khalil Khanna, who was an enemy of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, was arrested by the people. Nuri Said called Khalil Khanna and told him to move the abusive officers to other places. Just to assure Kashif al-Ghata that these cases are closed. Then Nuri Said ordered the interior minister to inform all governors and their officers that are in the path of the pilgrims of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, in all the cities and in all the villages. All officials in those cities were informed that pilgrims who don't have visas or passports, on the condition they have the paper slips of Kashif al-Ghata, they should be allowed passage. The same story happened in this year in Arbain. Why should people need visas for Imam Hussein's pilgrimage? Even the world today doesn't accept the logic behind this. What gives them the right to not issue visas or passports? Imam Hussein belongs to the entire world. In his book, the late Kashif al-Ghata writes that a Christian priest in Baghdad once told him, "You Shia people do not know how to approach Imam Hussein. If Imam Hussein belonged to Christianity, we would have raised banners in all corners of the world and gathered people in the name of Imam Hussein and preached our faith to them." Are there any other universal characters like Imam Hussein in other faiths? Even the four people who are superior to Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein said that his grandfather, father, mother, and elder brother were all superiors to him. Yet none of them are universal characters like Imam Hussein. There is no Arbain pilgrimage for any of them. Ever since the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Ottomans, and many others have tried to stop the pilgrims of this holy Imam.
هیچ کدوم از اینا مثل امام حسین جهانی هستن؟ هیچ کدوم اربعین دارن اینجور؟
Kudos to the people of Iraq. All people from other countries should learn from the Iraqi nation.
بنی امیه ها، بنی مروان ها، بنی العباس ها، بنی عثمان ها، دیگران تا امروز بازوارش اینجور میکنن.
Many people who have taken part in the Arba'in Waqt this year or the previous years, they have seen that even though some Iraqis are desperately poor, but they offer everything they have to serve the pilgrims of Imam Hussein.
ملت‌های دیگه دنیا اینو از عراقی‌ها یاد بگیرن.
Imam Hussein is an outstanding figure in the entire history.
زیارت اربعین سالهای دیگه قبل وقتهای دیگه دیدن. طرف تو بساط نداره، حال و مالش همه رو میداره و زوار امام حسین. خیلی قصه یکی و هزار تا نیست.
Imam Hussein is second to none in this respect. All faiths and religions honor Imam Hussein. For who else God and the angels have recited eulogies? These days pass and the history will judge us. The pilgrims of Imam Hussein must be supported and vow to those people who refuse to help the pilgrims, if they can help, let alone those who bother the pilgrims. When Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, was 5 or 6 years old, the Holy Prophet of Islam looked at his grandson and then he started crying. He probably could foresee the Ashura tragedies. So he raised his head and invoked these curses. O God, let down whoever that lets Hussein down. Letting down Imam Hussein is not the same as opposing Imam Hussein. It is just to refuse to support Imam Hussein. Let's say someone wants to visit Karbala and someone refuses to help him make the trip, or they refuse to loan them some money. Sometimes people even can take loans to pay for others go on this pilgrimage. Letting down is just refusing to support. And the Holy Prophet says, O God, let down whoever lets Hussein down. Those who let down Imam Hussein are even worse than those who are hostile towards this Imam. Harun, Ma'mun, Mutawakkil. Of course, Harun had a hypocritical policy on this issue. The Umayyad and the Abbasid rulers, they all were hostile. I read a biography of a scholar. He was a renowned scholar in Karbala almost 150 years ago. This scholar was arrested for visiting Imam Hussein's shrine. He was supposed to be moved to Istanbul to be executed. When this scholar was moved to Baghdad, some elders mediated a pardon for him. Another scholar from Kabbalah, and he was a teacher of the teachers of the famous Bahrul Ulum. This scholar's name was Sayyid Nasrullah Ha'iri. This scholar lived 250 years ago. And he used to teach Islamic law at the shrine of Imam Hussein. And the famous scholar, Bahrul Ulum, was a student of this scholar's student. Anyways, this scholar was taken to Turkey, where he was executed. He was a great Islamic scholar of law, and he was also a very skilled poet. He has many beautiful poems in honor of Imam Hussein. Even today, some Arabs read his poems. Imam Hussein has always been a dividing line. On the one side, there is the heaven, and on the other side, there is the hellfire. Those on the side of Imam Hussein are in the heavens. And those who are inimical to Imam Hussein, even to the extent of refusing to support this cause, as stated by the Holy Prophet of Islam, who asked God to punish those who refuse to support Hussein, they will end up in hellfire. Punishment awaits those who refuse to support Imam Hussein. And even worse awaits those who oppose Imam Hussein. This is my message to the entire world. You can find its references in Bihar and Kamil Ziyarat. We all know what is a frying pan. Traditions say there is a huge frying pan in hell, and people are inside this frying pan. But only one group of people are thrown in this. The heavy drinkers or the corrupt sinners, they won't be thrown in this frying pan. They are only the people who wronged the pilgrims of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. On the judgment day, those who were wronged, they will be shown the place of those who wronged him in this world. Is it really worth it? Now let's talk from a juridical perspective. People need to know about Islamic laws. Capable Muslims are obligated to go on Hajj pilgrimage. And if these people don't go to Hajj, they will be told on their deathbed to choose between Christianity or Judaism. And they will be counted as a Christian or a Jew on the judgment day. However, visiting the shrine of Imam Hussein is only a recommended act. But visiting Imam Hussein's shrine is revered more by God in comparison to Hajj. There is a consensus among scholars on this issue. So let me clarify. If someone is bodily and financially capable, they must go on Hajj. But if there are life threats in this journey, in the presence of these threats, if this person goes on Hajj and dies in this way, they have actually sinned. and their family should redo the Hajj later on. There is a consensus among Shia scholars on this issue. Therefore, there should be no threats to life in the Hajj pilgrimage. Otherwise, the Hajj will not be obligatory for the Muslims. Now, if someone dies in this journey, they have sinned.
نمازهایش که شکست خونده باید براش قضا بدن یا خودش بعد کشته شده رفته. اگر وصیت کرده باید اینا رو قضا بدن، یعنی حتی نمازهای شکسته.
But in the presence of these threats, if a person doesn't die in this journey, a group of scholars, including myself, believe that their Hajj is accepted and they don't have to redo it next year. But they should redo all their daily prayers. The author of the Urwatul Wuthqa and some other scholars believe that even their Hajj pilgrimage won't be accepted even if they escape the threats. But there are no Shia scholars, starting from Sheikh Mufid up until now, who says that visiting Imam Hussein's shrine is a sin if there is life threats in the way. There have always been fake scholars, though. People should collect these stories about Karbala. In the last 1200 years, there have been many outbreaks of cholera in Karbala city. But never once we see a great Shia scholar to make it an excuse for banning people from visiting the shrine of Imam Hussein. Study the works of Sheikh Mufid, Sheikh Tusi, Sayyid Murtaza, Allama Hilli, or even Bahrul Ulum. Many people died in the cholera outbreaks in Karbala, but never was the pilgrimage banned. Though visiting Imam Hussein's shrine is not obligatory like the Hajj, but if someone was certain that he will die if he visits the shrine of Imam Hussein, they will be rewarded greatly by God if they ignore the threats, and he would not need to redo his daily prayers. And even if he dies in this journey, multiple traditions say that he will be in the highest places of the heavens. I recommend the youth to read the book Kamil al-Ziyarat. It is an important Shia book. This story of Kashf al-Ghita is so similar to what happened this year in Arbain. Is there any scholar today whose paper slips can secure safe passage for pilgrims? Nuri Said was not a religious or a Shia person, but he always respected the scholars. And Kashf al-Ghita was just one of the scholars in the holy city of Najaf. He was not the leading scholar in his time. Why some people are so inimical to Imam Hussein? If you study these people, you can see they all are deceived by this world. God has promised not to forgive those who wrong Imam Hussein. Just check the divine tradition of Prophet Moses. A person drinks his whole life, but he repents on his deathbed. God has promised to forgive them. A person doesn't do daily prayers at all, but he truly repents before his death. God will forgive them. But God will not forgive those who wrong Imam Hussein. Kudos to those pilgrims who went through hardships this year. Traditions say they will be rewarded based on the hardships they go through. And bow to those people who did not support it, as the Prophet said. Those who did not support the pilgrims of Imam Hussein. Even if you could take loans to help out the pilgrims in this journey, and you didn't, this is called letting down Imam Hussein. The Holy Quran reads, "In the Messenger of God, you have a great role model." And the Holy Prophet, during his lifetime, used to take loans to help out people. And if he could not pay off the loans, he took other loans to pay off the previous loans. It is said that Imam Ali kept paying off those loans 7 years after the Prophet's martyrdom. He used to go out to Hajj and announce to the public to come to him if anyone had loaned any money to the Holy Prophet of Islam. You can take loans to help out the pilgrims. This year's Arba'in is over, but how did it end? I hope this situation doesn't repeat itself. It is a pity that people who call themselves Shia end up in the frying pan in the afterlife. There are few people who are enemies of Imam Hussein. Many people are hostile to the Ahlul Bayt, but not to Imam Hussein. And next is the martyrdom of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Lady Fatima said, "Know that I am Fatima, daughter of Muhammad." Who is responsible to make Lady Fatima Zahra heard worldwide? The first group are the Shia believers in the Islamic countries. And in the second step are those Shia believers who live in non-Islamic countries. And today, there are millions of Shias living in non-Muslim countries. The youths should be encouraged to read and memorize the sermon by Lady Fatima Zahra, peace be upon her, and this sermon should be translated to other languages. This sermon by Lady Fatima is a concise introduction of Islam, including Islamic beliefs, Islamic law, Islamic ethics, and the traditions of the Holy Prophet, Imam Ali, and also the Islamic rulings. The world needs to know about this. I once read a book which was in Arabic. The book's name is Holy Scriptures Under Scrutiny.
تحت المجهر يعني انجيل وتوراة مجهرم يعني ذربين.
This book says that Bible is translated into 6,000 languages, and it was almost 50 years ago.
بیش از 6,000 بار ترجمه شده. حالا اینم کتاب مالش شاید 50-60 سال قبله. تا حالا چقدر نمیدونم.
The sermon of Lady Fatima is just a few pages. Can't we just translate it to important languages in the world? Can't we just publish it on social media or on our TV networks? We can always start from zero. What if Lady Fatima asks you why you did not help her voice to be heard?
پیغمبر خدا صلی الله علیه و آله منافقین پشت سرشون نماز میخوندن باهاشون روزه میگرفتن حتی وقتی که پیغمبر خدا روزشون رو خوردن اونا روزه رو نخوردن. توی یکی از دفاعایی که پیغمبر خدا صلی الله علیه و آله در ماه رمضان بیرون رفتن برای دفع دشمن.
Bible is translated into 6,000 languages.
منافقین که حالا با پیغمبر خدا اومدن به جنگ دفاعی.
Hypocrites used to pray and fast with the Holy Prophet of Islam. Even when the Holy Prophet broke his fast, they refused to do the same. It happened during a defensive campaign which took place in the month of Ramadan. Since it was a trip, the Holy Prophet broke his fast. But some hypocrites who had accompanied the Prophet in that campaign, they refused to break their fasts, while the Prophet was the person who had told them to fast in the first place. Nonetheless, they refused to break their fasts. And the Prophet called those people the disobedient 3 times. Even though they lived, prayed and fasted with the Holy Prophet of Islam. The traditions of the Holy Prophet of Islam are gone, and all of us are responsible to revive these traditions. And one of them is the issue of the high divorce rates. Why are the divorce rates so high in our world today? Everyone must be held accountable. In every city, village, and family, when the young boys and girls get married, if they have some trivial arguments, people should intervene and help them with their marriage. They should not let the young couples get separated. I remember that in Karbala, there were 10 people, all of whom have passed away now. They used to help people with their marital issues. Weddings have become so expensive. Why is the age for getting married is increasing so much? The boys and girls that hit puberty, their marriage is postponed for 10 years. How can they keep themselves away from the sins? Everyone is responsible in this matter. Try to address the issues that keep the youth from getting married. If a boy loves a girl and they are a good match, let's say the boy doesn't have a stable job or a house, you should try to intervene and help them. You might not be successful in all cases, but surely it is worth trying. Not all the patients at the hospitals are cured or saved, but we always should give it a try.
در شرع اجماع تمام مسلمین علمای مسلمین چه شیعه چه غیر شیعه که اگه کسی میخواد ازدواج کنه پول نداره
Everyone should try to decrease the divorce rates. It's possible if you spend time on it. And at the same time, you should try to increase the marriage rates. Firstly, it is the responsibility of the Islamic governments, and all Muslim scholars from all schools of thought have a consensus on this issue. So if a person cannot afford getting married, the Islamic government, which holds on the Islamic treasury, must help them financially. And even if the Islamic government doesn't do anything, they are sinners.
یکی دیگه هر کی صدای منو حالا یا بعد میشنوه در اطراف دنیا یکشم شماها
Now that the governments do not do anything, we should buckle up.
حسینیه تو دنیا اضافه کنید تو شهرتون تو دهتون تو شهر دیگه پول ندارید
We need to revive marriage, this tradition of the Holy Prophet of Islam, and also help decrease the divorce rates. On a second note, anyone who hears me now or in the future, please make a decision to build a Husseiniyah in your hometown or village or elsewhere. Maybe you cannot do this without having enough money, but you only need more time. 40 years ago, someone from one of the cities in Iran visited my late brother here in this house. My brother asked him, "Are there any Husseiniyyahs in your hometown?" That person said, "No, we don't have much money." My brother gave him a very small donation, by which he could maybe buy 2 kilos of meat. Then my brother told him to go and start from this. Then my brother said, "The rest is all you need. The rest you need is just a strong will." 10 years ago, this person who has passed away came to meet me and said that he started receiving donations after then, and finally they built a Husseiniyyah in their hometown. So it is possible to build a Husseiniyyah even with the small donations. I read it somewhere that in one Islamic country, there is a big mosque, and on the front door of this mosque it is written
نهار فرض کنید گرونتر خورده، ارزونتر خورده نهار، بقیه پولش رو گذاشته واسه مسجد. خواسته لباس بخره، ملابس، کت، شلوار، پیرهن، خواسته بخره قبا، عبا، هرچی.
That this mosque was built by a very poor person.
جمع کرده یه مسجد باش درست کرده. کسایی دیگه نمیتونن اینجوری حسینیه درست.
And he saved money by eating less food and buying cheaper clothes.
همه از دنیا میرن، تو حسرت میمونن همه. حسینیه
Can you build a Husainiyah by doing the same thing?
دنبال کنید. من مدت‌ها و مکرر دنبال کردم.
One day, we all will leave this world, and all we have are regrets.
آدم ربایی تو اینا یا نیست یا کمه.
I have studied this issue thoroughly.
نیست یا کمه. اغتیال چی بهش میگن؟
Those people who go to the Husainiyas,
دیگر کشی توشون نیست یا کمه.
they don't commit suicide or homicide.
توشون نیست یا کمه. هیروئینی توش نیست یا کمه. یک مرکز دنیا و آخرت حسینیه. سعی کنید تو شهرتون اگه حسینیه خیلی
They are even less likely to get fatal diseases.
کسایی که شیعیانی که تو دنیا هستن،
They're not the victims to drugs.
هستن تو کشورهای غیر اسلامی.
It is a center that keeps you safe in this world and the next. So build a Husainiyah in your hometown or elsewhere. The Shia Muslims in non-Muslim countries should also build Husainiyahs where they live. The custodians of the Husainiyahs should also have clear plans to turn these Husainiyahs into educational centers. They should educate their children, boys and girls, about their faith. This is also a tradition of the Holy Prophet of Islam. They should teach their children about the ethics and the culture of the Ahlul Bayt. All of the Husainiyahs should be schools. It is obligatory to teach Islamic beliefs, laws, and ethics to the youths. If there are many Husainiyahs in your hometown, try building a Husainiyah in villages or towns nearby. I pray to the Almighty God and I plead to the Imam al-Mahdi, may God hasten his reappearance, so that what happened to the Arba'in of Imam Hussein this year doesn't repeat itself, especially at the hands of those who call themselves Shia Muslims. May God bless Muhammad and his pure household.